question number 2. So it's about what do you think the causes are for feeling like you don't belong, and how do you suggest people approach those?
Yeah.
So like if I can talk for myself, like feeling like I don't belong, I mean, I was raised with parents letting me know I was different and I needed to overdo and to just to be equal as, everyone else. So that was a lot of unlearning and really like acknowledging that me as a person, I had some worth and that for a long time I had believed that people would be friends with me not for myself but for my skills or for like my I don't know what I could do, but not for who I truly was. So I had to go through a lot of unlearning, and I feel like the environment also that we're in and the people we surround ourselves to are like key to us getting there. And in my experience, let's say in the Dames group, well, along the way, like I formed like very sincere and genuine relationships and great friends who tell me that they love me and I believe them. But at a certain point, like I thought, really, is that really a thing? Like, are they really sincere when they're saying that? But actually we can get there. So to me it was more about like environment and really like understanding that yes, I had some things to unlearn along the way. But I'm curious to hear about you, ladies. Like, what do you think are the causes for you, Shoshana?
I was going to speak about it kind of like for me specifically, but then in general, what I see too.
Hmm.
Um, just to say it for people listening, like for me, my belief on a quantum level is we're all energy. And I know I love that Michelle is on this call because her and I have had this conversation before about energy in general. But if everything is energy, it means that our emotions and thoughts and our experience when we're in a space with other people, energy. And so I think sometimes the experience of not feeling like you fit in, you don't belong, is when you are in a room of people who are having that same experience and fear, where their stuff is triggered about whether do I fit in, do people like me, am I dressed right, am I professional enough to be in this group, am I successful enough to be in this group, do people like me, am I too different, am I the right kind of business, like all of that inner dialogue that happens, then that is actually the energy that's present in the room, not just with one person, but multiple people. And so I remember walking into a Dames event a long time ago when there was like maybe one or two of us that were in the whatever you want to call it, the more woo woo field of things. And now I look on this call and there's quite a few more of us here. But when I originally started with the Dames, there was just a couple of us. And so I would walk into the space and feel that feeling of like, I'm not like these other people. My business is really different. I don't have a traditional business. I'm not a real estate agent or a marketing person, or at that time, really a coach or a blah, blah, blah. And I would have that thought. Well, if I was having that thought, other people in the room were having that thought too. So even if I didn't engage with them and have a conversation and be willing to be vulnerable to talk about it, energetically, my body was picking it up. And so I remember coming to an event and having talked to a client and talked to them about, walking into the room with their in-laws for the very first time with the whole family who they just married into and how like terrified they were. And I was like, no, 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 you're tapping into other people's feelings. You got to feel your own feelings and be in your body. And so I did the exact same thing. I walked into this space, I took a deep breath, and I was like, okay, what's mine and what's not mine? And so I noticed that like I said, my specific flavor is like being included versus do I fit? And I noticed I was feeling, do I fit in? Well, doing the fitting in thing, like I've been programmed since birth that I am different, like you, Fabienne. So I don't have a concern for, like, I know already I don't. So I don't have a wondering about whether I do or not because I know I don't. Like, I know that already. It's not a problem for me. I kind of embrace it fully. But the part about being included, like, oh, there's that group over there. Do I just walk over and start talking to them? When I just identified what was happening inside of me, I could recognize it for what it was, see what was happening for other people on an energetic level, let it all go, and recognize why I was there. It was what Jen said earlier about my inner agency. and determining my own experience, then I was more willing to just, in my discomfort, walk up and start talking to people
Mhm.
versus kind of that like moment of freeze of like, oh my God, because it wasn't me. I wasn't actually having that experience. I was picking it up in the room. So the short answer is I think energetic. The reason why we have that experience sometimes is because we are picking up the energy that is other people's energy, feelings, experiences, and we're taking it on as our own. Okay, that was a long answer.
Dr. Carey.
So building Shoshana on what you're talking about, I think that's part of what makes it so especially important to get grounded in the present moment with yourself, right? So that you're not getting clobbered with crap from middle school, right? And coming in and disrupting you, but you're also not getting clobbered with everybody else's stuff from middle school that's coming into the room. So Fabienne, I think a lot of the cause of the sensation of not belonging is a history of experiences where you didn't actually belong, right? And you were running into something that wasn't smooth. And um and maybe that's historical, maybe that happened in your family, maybe that happened, yesterday at wherever. But we are going to have those experiences, and so that's where one of your most empowering things is actually get back into yourself and your body and figure out what's mine, what's not mine, what's past, and what's actually going on right now. And a lot of times, what's actually going on right now when you're in one of these places where you aren't feeling like you're belonging or you're not feeling included, um, a lot of times the present is actually that you don't know the answer yet,
Mhm.
right? You haven't gone to the whole conference. You haven't gone through the whole new business idea. You're at the beginning of something. And because you're uncertain, that's a piece of what's really throwing you off. So
Mhm.
getting grounded into yourself, what's here, what's now, and then what's real and what's a fear, I think are some of those questions to ask. Like, is this real? Am I not being included? Or just have I not gone up and said hi to anybody yet? Oh, that's
Mhm.
just me. I'm afraid I haven't gone up and said hi to anybody yet. So just kind of clarifying that. And those clarifying questions are just that. It's not a big judgment. There's no shame attached. It's just literally like, oh, there's some past stuff. Hi, past stuff. Nice to see that you came with me today. Right. Um, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, that past stuff came up, that means I'm terrible or I haven't done my work or whatever ridiculous negative thought, starts again clobbering you. So that notion of just waving at what's coming up and then getting back into yourself and into that present moment.
Yeah, and what came into my head while you were talking was objectivity. Like seeing it's as if like you're watching yourself from the outside and really evaluating what's happening and then deciding what you do with it. And not being caught up into emotions and, as you said, judging yourself for, being ashamed or having all those feelings. Jen, what would you say?
Well, I would bring two other viewpoints into this. One is from a neuroscience perspective, that energetic experience and asking yourself, is this mine? What's happening is it's sort of like when women's cycles, for those of us that used to have periods, sync up. When you walk into a room like that, you're actually mirroring the neurons of other people. So it's brain patterning and it's automatic. The human brain has 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 85% are negative, 95% are repetitive. So the dames as a container automatically becomes a fertile ground for our experience of not fitting in, not belonging, not being included to arise. And if it's, as Dr. Carey said, in the moment, there's ways to deal with it. But I think there's also two other pieces, which is number one, if you're experiencing those high emotions, make sure later on to do some emotional release techniques, whether it's tapping, whether it's, hitting your pillow. I've got this thing called a damn it doll that I got from Amazon that I love. And I use that and slam it when I'm, angry. And I sometimes will just pretend to do a temper tantrum. And if Lori Handlers were on the call, she would tell you she does emotional release daily as a practice because the issues are in the tissues, right? Our cells have gray matter. So if we haven't worked the emotions through, that's going to be triggered. And then the other piece is what I call a defining moment. If the same situation happens again and again, take a minute, do some journaling on it, write out all the things that you're upset about. Now, you can't in the moment if you're at a conference or something, but later on, once you've written everything out, go back and just circle the facts. And you're going to find there's very few and there's a lot of story that you've made up. And then what I would suggest is ask yourself, is there an earlier similar story to that? Earlier similar? Because what I've found with my work in imposter syndrome with my clients, it generally comes back to some event between the ages of 6 and 12. Either they've had an experience of their relationship to authority, or mostly their relationship about belonging. And that becomes a defining moment where they felt left out. But because the brain wants to keep the thing it's a brain of alive, it comes up with a success strategy of how it's going to keep going. So you become gregarious, you become funny, you become shy, you become a chameleon, and that's your way of dealing with it. So the moment you walk in that room, when something comes up, if you're able to deal with it and it dissipates, awesome. But then there's later on checking in with yourself and saying, is that familiar? And let me work this through. When our amygdala gets hijacked like that, of course, our logical brain goes down the more the amygdala goes up. So when you're able to move the emotions through the body, you go back to that moment of being more logical. And that's when you can be that observer, that kind of impartial judge of, check that out. Isn't that funny? I thought I wasn't wearing the right stuff. Weird. That I thought that person, scowled at me. That might've had gas. I don't know. It was after lunch. We had beans, tacos, tortillas, whatever, you know what I mean? So there's ways to kind of move through it.
Awesome. Thank you for adding this. And Jenny, what would you add?
So many beautiful facets here. And I think the piece that I see in all of this is how it is that it can feel so difficult in the moment to bring ourselves into the present moment if we haven't learned how to literally belong to ourselves. Like, have a practice first thing in the morning, especially if you're traveling, conference, whatever it might be, meditation, prayer, reading poetry, drawing, dancing, to remember the self, not self, mine, not mine, like really coming into an embodied state with yourself. And many of us, and I know for me as an entrepreneur, I have so conditioned myself to like get out of bed, do the thing, do the next thing, do the next thing, that feels more pleasurable or relaxing than sitting in meditation, right? That can feel excruciating to be in that space of self and to really get to know me. And what I see, and I love how you describe this, Jen, like the Dames is this fertile container where we get to see ourselves, as well as all these other brilliant pieces that you all just named. And so when I walk in and I feel like people don't get me, I'm seeing the world as I am, not so much as the world is, though that's a facet as well, picking up other people's energies. And the only way that any of us is able to navigate this with sovereignty and agency is to condition awareness, right? And that conditioned awareness starts for me very first thing in the morning. The moment I get up, as soon as I wake up, my hand goes on my heart and I welcome myself to the day. And I practice, okay, this is what it's like to be with me. So many of us have learned to jump out of ourselves. I can't be with me. I got to do something. I got to be productive. I got to prove, right? And so it's such a rich conversation because there's so many facets to this, and we could go for hours into every single one of them. But yeah, I think for me, belong to yourself, which means really know thyself, right? Know who you are.
Yeah. So